Thank you for joining Coffee Talks. I'm your host, Julie Martini, Vice President of Public Affairs and Marketing at Advocis National, filling in for Sheila Godsey. Like many of you, I woke up to some cold weather this morning, and I have to confess, it's on days like this when I'm happy to be joining a session like this one from the comfort of home. I'd like to take a quick moment to thank our corporate partners and sponsors for helping Advocis continue to build a strong community of financial advisors across Canada. Today, we have a special 40-minute edition of Coffee Talks. We'll be hearing from some industry leaders as they discuss the impact of COVID-19 and our industry's outlook for 2021. And with that, I'd like to introduce our moderator for today's panel, Greg Pollock, President and CEO of Advocis. Over to you, Greg.
Thanks, Julie. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, really from right across the country. I know there's an awful lot of individuals on the call this morning. We're very, very excited about this. I'm speaking to you from downtown Toronto this morning, and I'm going to get right to it. I'm going to be a participant as well as moderating this, so we'll make a few comments as we go along as well. But we'll get right to it, introducing our panelists. So first up, Jim Virtue, who is President and Chief Operating Officer at PPI. Good morning, Jim, and welcome this morning. We have Jacques Goulet with us, President of Sun Life Canada. Good morning, Jacques. I believe, Jim, you're probably in Calgary, and Jacques, I think probably you're in Montreal, if I'm not mistaken, this morning.
Toronto.
And sorry?
Toronto.
Oh, you're in Toronto today. Okay, fantastic. Okay, welcome. And we have Duane Green, President and CEO of Franklin Templeton Canada and Fiduciary Trust Canada. Welcome, Duane. I know you are in Toronto lots of times, so I don't know if that's where you are this morning as well.
I'm actually, and I can fully appreciate where Julie's coming from. I'm actually up in Muskoka, so the feels like temperature, speaking as a true Canadian right now, is minus 27. And there's a lot of snow.
Okay, well, very good. Well, welcome everyone, and I'm going to get right to it. So first question, as a leader, if you knew in March 2020 what you have learned now, what would you have done differently? And what would you have done the same? So first up, Jacques, over to you.
Thank you, Greg. That's a great question. As we all know, hindsight is 2020, and if I had hindsight, I would have invested in BlackBerry. But anyways, on a more serious note, it's a great question, and I would say the quick answer is not that many things different, Greg, and let me explain to you a little bit why. At Sun Life, and you know, we've been around 156 years. We are very driven by our purpose, which is to help Canadians, our clients, achieve lifetime financial security and live healthier lives. So a lot of the decisions that we make are driven by that. And I remember very, very well that Friday the 13th of March, when this all started and we got the executive team together, first thing on Monday morning, of course, we had to move everybody working from home. We had 98% of people working from home within a week. We have essential workers, of course, who needed to be there. We set up all our call centers. We had our trading desk operating within a week on a work from home basis. And the discussion we had was, you know, this is a special moment. This is one of these, what we call 1 in 100 year event. It's a historical event, and there's going to be no standing still through the pandemic. And what I mean by that is our view was strongly that either your brand is going to improve tremendously and you're going to be seen as a company that did well and took care of its clients and advisors and so on, or else you're going to be seen as a company that, you know, missed the boat or something. And it would have been easy, Greg, to quickly go into expense management mode and do all kinds of things to tighten things. We took exactly the opposite direction. You know, we said, look, this is a moment where we got to empower our advisors. We got to look after our clients. So we doubled down and decided to make some strategic investments right then and there that we probably had on the agenda, but we'd have done on a more sequential basis, if you like. So, we give you some examples. For example, on the group side, we made a very quick partnership with the leading virtual care or telehealth provider in Canada, Dialogue. In fact, we made a strategic investment in Dialogue, and then we rolled out all kinds of tools to enable our advisors to be more productive in a digital environment. The other thing, and I'll mention, and then I'll leave it to the Q&A, but we quickly realized that mental health was going to be a big issue. There's an element of adrenaline early on. People are, excited and they're coming together to make things happen. But we realized that the longer this goes, it's taking a real toll, of course, on Canadians in general, but also on our employees. So one of the things we did, Greg, is we started a series of town hall sessions, and we brought this is with our own employees, and we brought together mental health experts to talk to our folks. And we also had some interesting guests. For example, I got to do an interview with General Romeo Dallaire, who you would know was involved, of course, in Rwanda. We did a session with Silken Laumann. Some of you who are older, like me, might remember Silken Laumann from the Barcelona Olympics and the tragedy that happened to her. And yet, a few weeks later, she won 2 medals. And so, I did a session with the president of the Raptors, Masai Ujiri, on some of the things that the Raptors are doing. This was also linked to Black Lives Matter. So we decided that it was important for the resilience of the company to put a heavy emphasis on mental health. And of course, I can't let it go today. As you know, it's Bell Let's Talk Day, January 27, and an initiative that we strongly support, of course, at Sun Life. So these are some of the things, Greg, that we did. And there was nothing major, as I said, we would do different. And all of it was driven by our strong values to focus on clients and advisors. Fantastic.
Thanks, Jacques. I appreciate that. Duane, over to you.
Well, Greg, first off, thanks very much for having me today and joining this session. I started off my career in the life insurance business with MetLife Canada, so it's a little bit of a blast from the past for those folks that are joining this session, to kind of remember some of the old names from the industry. But, to be here, Advocis is obviously, a huge advocate on behalf of financial advice and supporting, our industry per se. But, I think the question you've asked, is really, hindsight, with the benefit of hindsight, as Jacques said, we could have all mapped this out a whole lot differently. So, I guess I'll kind of break down the question that you asked was, what have we learned, or what have I learned? And what I can say undoubtedly is that there is absolutely no such thing as over communication. During this, you may think, and it's not just sending out notes, it's reaching out, it's phone calls, it's video calls, town halls, as Jacques mentioned, webinars. It's just communicating. And I think I really look at it from the standpoint of, from a staff standpoint, our employee base, as well as our clients and our intermediaries. So it's how do you keep that communication going? And so, looking at what would I have done differently and kind of going back, it would probably be to practice more patience. And again, I'm being personal here on that regard, in that, I can't tell you how many times after we did close, and just like Jacques, we all had to pivot. We all had to learn how to do things differently. We're all forced into a new environment. We're, a global organization, but from a Canadian standpoint, we pivoted from Friday that 13th to Monday the 16th, where 99% of our employee base was now working remotely. We got them set up with technology. Quite frankly, I'm so proud of our team, the way they just were able to keep going and not miss a beat. And so, I'm so proud of what we've done, but, the patience of, it was almost right at that point in time, we started talking about, well, when do you think we're coming back to the office? And we started to set these goalposts and ideas of, when we'll be back, when we'll be to the other side, or back to normal, or what we thought was normal. And I think looking back, it's that patience of, in doing all of these, setting a goalpost, it put a lot of pressure and anxiety on people. It's a global health pandemic, and a lot of people have a lot of stuff going on in their lives. And so to think that, we start having these benchmarking ideas, and it's fine from a management team to start looking at these things, but it's the communication of those expectations out to the employee base, I think I would have been more patient to say, we need to take a longer term view, which is what we've adopted. And we adopted that actually very early on. So the end of last summer, we basically said, we're not even going to have a discussion of when to return to office until at least June of 2021. So if you think of August 2020, that just seemed like a whole other world away. So we took away any of the concern, the anxiety, how to plan for a school year, how to really adapt to this new working environment where, you may have people competing for Wi-Fi bandwidth or, just kids around. I mean, there's just a lot of things that we know people have been dealing with and adapting with. And then maybe just to end it on, what would we continue to do? And I think that's really, key is that it's been an evolution for us, and that we've maybe advanced to a faster degree some of our strategic thinking as an organization, but we really just kept doing a lot of what we've been doing, but we ramped it up. So it was about advisor outreach. It's about, client outreach, webinars, to have thought, Greg, when I heard the numbers for this session, which speaks, volumes to the membership base of Advocis to want to get together. And, a year ago, I would never have thought you would tell me that there'd be over 500 people that would want to hear from the three of us. But, and that's no disrespect to my fellow panelists. Maybe I should have said to hear from me, but I guess when I look at it, it's in the context that, we started ramping up our webinar series, and we're getting 600, 700, 800 people on weekly webinars, be it advisors, that they're hungry for information, hungry for that interaction. And so these are the things we would have continued to do the same, obviously pivoting to ramp up our digital efforts. But the one big thing we did do is we took the opportunity to really say, what do we want the future of distribution to look like? And not wait until we got to the other side of the pandemic to enact any strategic changes, but to take it on. And so we did that last summer. And again, so proud of our distribution teams, the way they've just been able to, really hit the ground running to support our advisor base.
Great. Thanks, Duane. Jim, over to you.
Great. Well, thanks, Greg, for inviting me to join this. And I would echo a lot of the comments that Jacques and Duane have said. And I would totally agree with Duane that what we learned about, we learned a lot about the importance of communication and doing it regularly and not sort of trying to set a bar for an event's going to happen in, the near future, because we don't really know what's going to happen in the near future. We did all the same things. We moved our employees home in the first week, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe I'll put a slightly different spin on it. What I would say is I've been incredibly impressed with the resiliency of advisors and the ability of advisors to adapt to these changes. We've really seen some great, advisors sort of picking up the ball, changing their business practices totally, and not missing a beat. We're writing the same amount of business today as we were writing before the pandemic. And a lot of that is because of the advisor's ability to be resilient, make some changes. Just another comment is, I think what the pandemic did from the insurance industry's point of view is it gave us this sort of shock to the system that the system needed. The insurance industry is not known for being the most technologically advanced, it's not known for really adapting, embracing technology. And what we've seen is just a tremendous amount of changes. I mean, the pandemic was the great accelerator, right? We've seen all companies, embrace change, adopt change, do it way quicker than they were going to do it before. And our company is the same. We made changes way faster than we were. And I think the industry is going to benefit dramatically from that. So those are my initial comments. I think that, I would echo the same things that Jacques and Duane said about moving home, et cetera.
Well, thanks, Jim. I appreciate that. And, I could even echo a lot of the things people have said here in terms of the association. I mean, talk about innovation and technology. We didn't have this Coffee Talks webinar series, if you want, a year ago. We didn't even think about it. And within a week or two, it was up and running. We have found that communication has been absolutely central, and that was definitely touched on in the previous comments. I'm sensitive to time here, so I'm going to go right into question 2, because I'm sure people want to hear from you. So given the economic challenges of 2020, what is your organization going to be doing in 2021 to inspire confidence in Canadians, to assist the financial advisors who serve them, and what's going to be the vital part, if you want, of how they can recover and move forward? So we're going to go over to Duane first. Duane.
Right. You know, I mean, I'll answer the question, Greg, just really from the lens of what we can do. I mean, I wish we had a broader platform, or could have a lot of interesting conversations around how to inspire Canadians, you know, in 2021 collectively. But, you know, from a Franklin Templeton Canada standpoint, you know, I think it's continuing to really look for and find creative ways to provide advisors with different forms of content, more educational tools for advisors to use with their clients, provide that value add, but I'd almost say on steroids. And I alluded to that in my last answer. You know, our response was that we've been forced in, you know, like Jim said, we've all been forced into this new dynamic that we're operating in. And there are a lot of good things that are coming out of it, you know, from a business standpoint, in the way we interact with our clients, where we interact with advisors, you know, just the way we conduct business in and of itself. There are a lot of positives. And so, you know, I think the confidence, you know, is really about what we can do and what we can control. And that's really, you know, we're an asset management firm. So what can we do to help, you know, Canadians save for their future financial security? And, you know, we have to I can stand here and tell you, you know, all the great things we could do, but at the end of the day, we've got to be backed up by, you know, the investment management that we're offering. But I think at the end of the day, you know, is that what I've learned and what, you know, I'm seeing is that no matter, and I said this even before, in fact, I started saying this when the big rage was all about robo-advisors and what's that going to do to our industry. And that, quite frankly, our industry is a relationship industry, always has been and always will be. And what the pandemic has now forced us all to do is, how do you embrace technology into your business? So how did we embrace technology, you know, both within a corporate setting, but also in support of advisors? But then, you know, how do advisors embrace technology? And you're not going to get replaced. People still want to speak to someone, but now they may want to access their accounts a little differently. They may want to interact with you a little differently. I mean, Zoom calls now are you know, obviously we're forced into doing Zoom calls, but you think about even, you know, when we're talking to advisors, none of the technology is new, but we've all been forced to embrace it. And I think, you know, like all of us, we were still undergoing certain business, I guess, plans and that. And so, you know, when I look at this and what we can do is, you know, bring new capabilities, you know, new oriented type investment solutions to help Canadians. And on the you know, right in the middle of this pandemic, you know, the new products in 2021, and versus same product, I'd say the new capabilities we're going to introduce to the Canadian advisory market, I think is going to be second to none, and I'm really excited about what we'll do.
Super, thanks, Duane. Appreciate it. All right, Jim, over to you.
Well, at PPI, our primary market is, you know, independent advisors. So I'm going to, you know, speak as to what I think we can do to help independent advisors. And for us, it's more than just business as usual. You know, I think this is a time that we can really step up and help our advisors transition to a new business model. Just a couple of quick examples as to what we've done. We've had a advisor toolkit that provides them with illustrations and marketing software and other sales tools. We've launched that on a cloud-based platform in the last 6 months. We've developed an advisor learning portal. We had talked about doing this for the last 2 or 3 years, but we had been more doing, you know, in-office seminars, etc. So just like your experience, Duane, we're seeing, you know, very high volumes of advisors sign into our regular advisor, you know, educational portals. We've developed a social media platform for our advisors to use to stay in touch with their clients and with their prospects. What it does is it allows them to use whatever social media platform they use to push out content to their clients and to stay in touch. We've seen 800 advisors sign up for that and are using it regularly. So we've really seen a big uptake in our advisors to embracing all these new tools. Just one last example is, you know, e-applications prior to the pandemic, we had about 40% of our applications were coming in as an electronic application. That during the pandemic rose to about 75, and now it's still, still at 70%. So we've seen this tremendous acceleration by advisors in embracing all these new methods of doing things. It's been great to see.
Super. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. Jacques, please.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. I would echo some of the comments from Jim and Duane. I do, we do similar things, e-applications, and in fact, we've also streamlined the underwriting process. So now we have a lot more applications that are going through without human underwriting intervention. What I would come back to for 2021 is at a higher level. I think that what we all need to do, and we are very, very strong believers of that at Sun Life, is the value of advice. That is so important, and Duane and Jim touched on that. There are those out there that are promoting, and that's fine in a way, lower fees, and if you pay lower fees, you get better investment returns. But a financial plan is not an investment optimization strategy is not a financial plan. When something happens, you become disabled mid-career, or else in your late 50s, you lose your job and you're having to make do with your savings, and you thought you were going to run or work another 5 or 6 years. You want to talk to somebody. You want to talk to somebody that you trust. And the reality that we all know is these things are complex. They're complicated. Knowing how much money you need for retirement, knowing how much protection you need in case something happens, is not something that is that simple. I'm an actuary by background, and I have a financial advisor, and I'm glad that I have one. So I think we're it's something we've done, but we will continue to do, and we think that the pandemic has brought this home for many people. In fact, I would say, frankly, Greg, if you interview 1,000 Canadians and you engage them in a deep discussion about what really, truly matters in their life, beyond what they read in the news in the morning, I would venture to say to you that 90% of them will talk to you about their health. They have a health concern of their own, or they have a health concern for a loved one. Or else they're going to talk to you about financial security, either for themselves or again for their loved ones. So all of us here on this call, the 500 people that you say you have, and on the 4 of us, we are operating in an area which is the sweet spot of the deep major preoccupations of Canadians. And that was already the case, and it's only been enhanced by the pandemic. So we're putting a lot more focus on that. We're putting focus on holistic advice, of course. That's very important. So I'll stop here because I'm looking and I see that the clock is running.
Right. Thank you, Jacques. I appreciate that. Let me just say that, a lot of our members are small businesses, as you know, and they've been struggling, small businesses, with the pandemic, and certainly we're listening to them. And we are going to amend and assist where we can, in terms of issues moving forward. I'll just leave my comment at that. I want to ask a third question. We only have about 6 minutes to respond, so if you keep it to a couple of minutes, I'd really appreciate it. And then we'll get to a couple of Q&As from the audience. So a year from now, we're January 2022. What position do you hope to see both your organization in and the industry as a whole? And Jim, I'll go to you first.
Great, thanks, Rick. Number one, I think this whole digital transformation that we're going through shouldn't, take anything away from what the advisors do with their clients. What we really need to make sure is that what this does is it simplifies the process, increases the efficiency, and gives advisors more time to do what they really can do. This is a relationship business. It is understanding your clients so that you can make sure that they, that you're giving them the right results. So this can overall just be a real positive thing. From an industry point of view, what I think we need to do, what we have done in the last year, and I just want to see this continue, is that we work together, the insurers, the distributors, the advisors, to make sure that we're continuing on the momentum that we've already built up with the digital experience that we're doing. I'm worried that as the pandemic goes away, that we will revert back to our old ways and not continue to accelerate this digital experience. I think that's incredibly important. I think the pandemic has focused people on the importance of financial planning. There's been a great thing that's come out of this: financial planning, risk management, etc. And I personally believe the future of life insurance, which is our primary business, is very, very bright. There's this very large intergenerational transfer of wealth. We all know that insurance can play a great role in doing that in a tax efficient way. So I'm very bullish on the future, and I plan on spending a lot of my efforts to make sure that the industry continues to make these changes so that we can just get a better environment for advisors to work in the future.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Jacques, over to you. 2 minutes.
Yeah, quickly, and I'll come back on something I said, Greg, but if you ask Canadians in a survey, the most trusted professions or the most respected professions, you typically get, cardiologists and oncologists and people who make a huge difference, of course, in our lives. But, if I think of the next few years, Greg, it'd be wonderful if one of these days at the top of the survey comes back financial advisor as one of the most respected profession in Canada. I think that would be wonderful. That would go in line with the needs of Canadians. And, I could address, of course, digital, as Jim said, but I'll keep it short to that. That would be my wish for the future.
Couldn't agree more, Jacques. Thank you so much. Duane, over to you.
Yeah, no, Jim and Jacques really did a great job of ring fencing that in terms of where we all want to be. And I think, it really is, at I'd say a bigger picture level, I hope we come out of this with a better sense of humanity, much more empathy ingrained in how we interact, and that we actually do learn, out of a global health pandemic. It's a horrible, horrible situation we're all going through, but what are the best practices we can take out, like Jim was alluding to? So how, on the other side of this, because I don't want it to whipsaw right back to what it used to be. I think we've learned that we can do business differently. It's efficient, it's still meaningful, but it's different, and that's okay. And so I think coming out the other side, I just want us to, incorporate, both from an advisor standpoint, a corporate standpoint, all of this, the best of types of, examples that we can take, to really continue what we've been talking about, promoting the value of advice, better communication, and more value adds. So I think, that maybe I'll just leave it right there then, Greg.
Thanks, Duane. I appreciate that. I guess I'll just say from my perspective, we are very focused on professionalism, which relates exactly to advice and the value of advice. So the Title Protection Initiative, for example, very, very key and central for us. And I know there's been a lot of, differences of, opinion with respect to, how high should the standard be and so forth. But we're delighted that agenda is moving forward. I think the integration of digital and technology and how can we use that to assist the clients of our advisors, our members, that's absolutely key. Okay, I'm going to go to some of the questions here that have been sent to us. So first one up is, if there could be long-term savings by reducing office spaces, leases, etc., why should we be looking at going back to a physical office at all? So I'm going to turn that over to Jacques first of all.
Yeah, our view is we're not going back to the way things were. We need to embrace that we're going to be in a different world. I'm trying to be careful when I talk of not talking about remote working. It gives the impression that there's a center somewhere and then everybody else is less important. I prefer to talk about distributed work. So we have different pods in different places. And I think we're going to be in a world of flexibility. I mean, many people have enjoyed working from home. They might come back and say, look, and we've done surveys, by the way, on this of our employees. Some people are saying, I might like to work 3 or 4 days at home and 1 or 2 days in the office. And so I think we've got to prepare ourselves for a future of work that is different, that will have, by the way, Greg, implications on office space, no doubt about that. We'll need to reimagine, and we probably will have more space that is convening space, meeting space, and so on. So I do think we're looking at a different future of work, and it's actually a good thing.
Very good. Duane. something to add?
Yeah, I think just a lot of what Jacques said. We're never going to go back to the 5 days a week in the office. I mean, I just don't think that's the reality anymore, especially when we've proved that you don't need to do that. Now, I do think you do miss out on the camaraderie, brainstorming, just the ability to work together and just see each other. I mean, Jacques mentioned right on the top about mental health, and I do feel, and it's something I think about a lot and worry about a lot. And anybody who knows me will know that I've been speaking a lot about it. But it really is about how can you still provide that support? And when so many younger employees or even older employees. I mean, I'm a sales guy at heart. I want to be around people. I want to talk to people and be around my colleagues. But I look at how difficult this has been. Where, say, for younger employees, going to the office, working with their colleagues, that was their social network too. And now that's been removed. But, to think how we go forward from a real estate standpoint, yes, that's definitely going to have an impact. And I think even just from a management standpoint, it's managers are going to have to learn how to manage, more remote based employees. It's not about, you've got everybody in the office all at once. So I think there's going to be a learning that has to happen across the board.
Great. Thanks, Duane. Jim?
I would agree with what Jacques and Duane are saying. I just add one other element that we're struggling with is how do we continue to provide good service to our advisors? Our advisors are used to being able to come into the office, talk to the people that are helping them with their business, sit across the table. So the additional element that we're struggling with, and I'm sure they are too, is just how do we in this new workforce, because we're not going back to the way that we were doing it before, right? But how do we continue to provide that appropriate level of service to advisors, the support to advisors? Because a lot of advisors think of PPI as part of their business, as that's part of their community, right? So how do we continue to provide that community with not having all of our people in the offices all of the time? And we'll work through that in the next 6 months, 2 years, maybe 5 or 10 years, right? But it will be different, and we won't all be coming back to the office.
Great. Thanks, gentlemen, for your responses there. So let's go on to another question. We still have a few more minutes here. So how would you address new potential advisors in these uncharted territories? How does the landscape look for them? And I will go to Duane, first of all, on this.
I mean, I think it goes right down to the core principle. I think both Jim, Jacques, and I have already said, it's about the value of advice. And I think for any advisor right now, this is our time to shine. And, I think a new advisor coming in, will just learn a different business model. I mean, when I started, I did my Project 100, my 1031, the old sales school 101 kind of metrics around life insurance sales. But I think new advisors are going to come in having to understand that technology is part of their business right from day one. How to interact and be efficient, how to just build a client base, but it's the value add. How do you differentiate yourself too? So I think the amount of creativity that's going to happen is going to be overwhelming, and I think that's going to be a great opportunity for new advisors. But I think we have to support new entrants into it, and especially we need to support female entrants into our industry. And we all know the stats, and we could have a whole session on this, Greg, on diversity in our industry. And it's something we're working hard at Franklin Templeton to develop new programs to both from an internal standpoint, but also it's part of the value add I've been talking about a lot. But I think the new crop of advisors, it's like if it is true, like what Jacques said, and coming out of this, what we do is going to actually be renowned and respected across the board as providing that valuable service to Canadians, then this will be a sought after industry to be in. And hopefully we'll see a great new introduction of new advisors coming into our industry.
Great thoughts. Thanks, Duane. Appreciate it. Jim.
I would agree with Duane, and I might just add to that what will continue to be very important is mentorship. Although the advisors are going to be using a different technology to reach out to people, I think the mentorship of, we still can't forget this is a sales-based business. There are certain skills. It is a relationship-based business. So mentorship will continue to be important, and we have to figure out how to help those advisors with, the new advisors coming in, with staying in contact with some more senior people. And I know that Advocis, my time at Advocis, is doing a lot of work in that already.
Great. Thanks, Jim. And Jacques.
I would echo what Duane said. It's a great profession. It's a great time to come into that profession because we're more relevant than ever. And also, I think the people who are coming in now are coming in at a time where the combination of human and technology tools is very, very strong. The ability to do even more. So I'm a strong believer. I would encourage young people to be passionate about coming into that profession. And as you know, many of the young people want to do something that has a strong meaning, a strong purpose. They want to help the world. I mean, that's a great way to do it.
Great. Thanks, Jacques. I think we have time for one more question, and I'm just going to go to this one, which is a little controversial, which is good. Advocis has recently started talking about diversity, inclusion, and so forth. No disrespect to you four gentlemen, but I don't see much diversity on this panel. Can we expect some change on this going forward? So I'm going to start with Jim.
I think the simple answer is yes. We are seeing more and more diversity in Canada. We're seeing more diversity in the advisor forces that we're all dealing with, and it's important that our company and other successful companies embrace that and ensure that we look more like the general community that we're serving. So this is certainly a topic of discussion at PPI, and I'm sure it is at Sun Franklin Templeton too. So I think the answer simply is yes, Greg. You'll see.
All right, Jacques.
Yeah, I'm glad the question is asked. I agree with Jim. It's an important one, and we are making a lot of strides, actually. I would say the Canadian executive team at Sun Life has achieved gender parity. For those of you on the call, I'm sure know our distribution business is run by a woman. Rowena Chan, our insurance manufacturing business, is run by Vineet Kochar, who's a visible minority. And we're putting a lot of emphasis on that. And my view is it's obviously the right thing to do, but the more important aspect is that diversity equates higher performance. And we need to take that into account. We need to look at the communities that we work in and that we serve. And it's very, very important. There's a number of women, of course, on Sun Life's board of directors, as many of you may know. So we put that at the very top of our priorities. We've made good progress, but there is still, unfortunately, some work to do, and we're doing that work.
Thanks, Jacques. And final word over to you, Duane, on this, and then we'll be wrapping.
I mean, I think just you can't put a finer point on it. It's fundamental. We have to, and we have to take it seriously. And not that we haven't been, but I think there needs to be a renewed focus on D&I, and it's inherent in the business. I mean, Jacques just said it. You can read enough of the articles that it supports the reason that you hire good talent, and it's a diverse talent, base out there. I'd encourage anyone to pick up any of the studies out there from women in capital markets who we're pleased and proud to partner with. I mean, it's impactful, but I would say it's easy, and you called it right out. I mean, there is no diversity right here sitting on my screen in front of me, and I'm looking back at myself. But I think at the end of the day, it's a work in progress. Anybody who tries to say we're there, it's not about hitting a number. It's not about it's an ongoing, and it has to be just ingrained in the corporate culture and the DNA of the organization. And the corporate culture, it comes top down. And so you've got to walk the walk and talk the talk. It's easy to put out D&I principles and policies and that, but you've got to actually live it.
Thanks, Duane. Well, listen, thanks to all of you for participating in this Coffee Talks this morning. We greatly appreciate it. We'll certainly be keeping an eye on each other as we continue to struggle collectively through the pandemic. But boy, there has been all sorts of innovation and opportunity, and I think collectively we really should be proud of the industry, proud of one another. Have we solved everything? No, we haven't. but we're going to continue to move forward. So I'm going to turn this back to our host, Julie Martini. Back to you, Julie.
Thank you, Greg. And thank you, Jim, Jacques, and Duane. It's been great having you. We had a lot of great questions in the queue, and I'm sorry we didn't have time to get to all of them, but hopefully we'll have the opportunity to continue the conversation again in the near future. So with that, please stay tuned. On February 9th, we have our next coffee talk with Jacques Mazakian, Vice President at Advocis Broker Services, and Jeff Kwelinek, IT Director at Advocis, and they'll be teaming up to tell us about how cyber and privacy insurance must combine with IT and data protection practices to protect your businesses in this crazy digital age. And we will be sending you a follow-up email tomorrow that will include a recording of the session. If you joined us by phone, please email events@advocis.ca and let us know what number you joined from, first and last name and Advocis ID. CE credits will be loaded into your online CE tracker through the Advocis website within 3 business days. So for more information, please visit our website, advocis.ca. And if you want any more information about coffee talks, again, events@advocis.ca. Thank you again for joining us today and have a good one.